Start about now. Hello everybody and welcome to the 5.11 tier list update. We're just a couple patches away from the mid-season patch. Tomorrow's going to be the 5.12 patch notes, and that will be the patch which LAN is played on. Be sure to catch those at 11 AM ET, which is Atlanta time, on mixer.com/SmiteGame. And then the 5.13 patch notes are going to be massive because that is a mid-season patch. Make sure you catch those. I'm pretty sure I muted those. Don't know why they're coming up again. They're muted now. Professional. 100% professional here at the Alpha Jackal stream. And Alpha Jackal tier list update services. And without further ado, we're going to get into the tier list updates. Just a couple of things beforehand, as per usual. Based off of EU meta primarily. But we'll go on to high-level pro play, high-level SML play, and international region play as well. Based on competitive, you can take this tier list with a grain of salt into your ranked games, but some of the decisions and some of the placements, for example, Janus, are based upon communication more so than they are on the actual skill of the god. Although with Janus, again, it's a bit muddy there. So, let's get started. And in S+, we have one change and one change only. Sobek going to be moving to S, as his picks and bans and standing instead picks and bans have started to fall a bit because of the nerf to the breastplate start in the solo lane. Not being seen as a very high tier support pick, really picked for that solo lane pressure, isn't getting that consistently anymore, so falls down in value as a pick, falls down to S, just a small nerf down. See where it plays out from here, but without being in 90% of the picks and bans, an S+ rating does seem out of place. Onto S, and a big move here, a big drop. Terra gonna move all the way down, if I can grab her, to A. Simply seeing no play at all. 0. She has a good ultimate if you're grouping up and playing well around the Terra. Her early game is just absolutely garbage, and when we're seeing a meta develop round early game pressure in the dual lane, Terra is just not a valued pick at all in that scenario. So Terra moving all the way down. That's probably the biggest jump we've ever seen a god do. Yikes, been a big fall from grace for Terra considering her rework recently. And you know it's bad when a Milsey doesn't play Terra. When it's a good game for Terra and a Milsey still goes onto something like Fafnir, you know Terra's not in a good spot. So moving all the way down. Geb is going to move down a place, while Cerberus does take his place in S. Just doing a small swap between those two as dual lane starts to head towards this more pressure-heavy oriented dual lane. Cerberus can obviously guarantee that a bit better than the Geb, as a better, cleaner engage, I would say. Doesn't really have to force himself into the blink, as he can have his leap and then set up his ultimate. Has good damage, good setup with his stun, and can also be played in the solo lane whilst Geb cannot. Geb also, well, Geb does bring his shield, does bring health chunk because of his Cataclysm doing percentage of your target's current health. It's not enough to force him over to Cerberus right now, in my opinion. I think Cerberus is a fantastic pick, probably one of the best first picks you can do in this current meta, if you're looking for that flex pick potential. Otherwise, it's going to be Athena or Janus as your top two. On to S-. A few changes in S- this week. Long overdue rank down for one of the gods, and a couple of movers elsewhere. First one, it's going to be Chernobog. Moves to S. Saw more play during this past week of SPL than I anticipated, so it's going to be moving up slightly. Currently ranked as one of the top hunters right now by some. Can also be played in mid lane. I don't think we have seen him played mid yet, but he does have a kit that suggests that he could be played in mid lane, and I would expect that to happen maybe, if not next week, then definitely at the Summer LAN, if he does not get nerfed in 5.2. Up next is Osiris. Gonna move down to A+. Has received a buff recently, but has not seen play. The fact that he's received that buff recently and buffs to warriors in general means he doesn't fall down any further. But it's a shame because he has a really good kit. Damage mitigation is super valuable in a burst meta, which we are still currently in, especially with mages going into the solo lane, hunters potentially being played in mid, since Saket support coming out of Irafa earlier today. There's a lot of burst around right now, and to see a god with damage mitigation in his kit not being valued a bit higher just shows how weak his laning phase is these days. Very poke-oriented god, and he just can't sustain himself back up by doing that poke, it just takes too much damage and falls because of it. I see him being played in jungle. I want to see him played in jungle. I know this sounds bad because of the performance that Twig had at Worlds with him, but Osiris jungle does do things. Yes, it doesn't have any form of hard CC to help chase down targets apart from like a 1 second route at most on his ultimate. But that's why you have the draft to help cover that weakness. You pick something like Isis in the mid lane, you pair that up with an Osiris, you have pressure. Because you have that stun, you have that CC, you have that control coming out from the Isis, followed up by the raw damage of the Osiris. Flex pick potential just isn't seeing play, gonna move down for now. I believe it's going to start moving up soon, and I kind of don't want to see that because we've seen a lot of Osiris in Season 4, Season 3, Season 2, even before that Season 1. It's just not fun, especially when he just bounces back into the meta almost immediately. And final move is going to be Mercury, also joining Chernobog in S. Early pressure Hunter, early pressure Jungler for the Mercury. It's looking strong, it's looking like a pressure meta. He's one of the only junglers, in fact, it's the only jungler outside of Ratasker who will rush his boots, or Akon if you're Ratasker, because of how valuable it is to him and how valuable it is to his kit. And when you're rushing those boots, you're able to back before the first spawner speed buff, get those boots online. If you get the first blood even before the first spawner speed buff, you can back earlier and invade on their speed buff. The snowball potential with Mercury is absolutely insane right now. When you factor in the potential for crits, well, in his build, it's just nutty. It really is stupid how much pressure you can get with a late game character in the early game. Moving on to A+, we have a few gods moving in A+ this week. Freya going to move down to A-. Big move for Freya. Just has seen 0 play apart from 1 game in the spring split from SK. And they basically based their entire draft around it. They got an Arturasu support. They gave the pressure to the Freya because you have to. Freya's early game is absolutely trash when you compare it to some of the other options in the ADC position. Look at Medusa, you look at Artemis, you look at Chernobog. Their clears are phenomenal. Once you have a look at Freya's, she has to sacrifice her boxing, she has to sacrifice her poke potential to clear the wave. That's something you don't want to do. With Hunter, you can clear the way with your ability and still poke and still trade out effectively because you have those range basic attacks. Freya just doesn't have that luxury. So she's really forced to sit back, play defensive, play the lane out smart, to then get to that mid game where she's able to take those team fights and able to be that force. And right now we're just not seeing any of that because, as I mentioned before with Chernobog, I mentioned before with the Geb and Cerberus swap, it's all about that early lane pressure in dual lane. Right, it just doesn't fit that at all. And it's going to be seeing move because of it. Camazot's going to move from A+ to A. Just isn't seeing playtime right now. Big fall from grace for him, considering where he was at the start of the season as one of the top picks in jungle, one of the top picks in solo. Nerfs really have hurt him, and he just offers burst, but doesn't offer enough burst to warrant picking him up over somebody else who has burst, but also has CC. Yes, he can go immune in his ultimate for a few seconds and cause havoc, but I'd much rather have something like a Fear No Evil. I'd much rather have something that impacts the fights as a general rather than I'm going to get out or I'm going to dive this target a bit harder. Big fall from grace for the Batman. Now, Chang'e is going to be moving up to S-. As her playtime increases, she moves up yet again. Seen a fair bit of her in the SPL, and with the changes to breastplate, she's still seeing play. She's still seeing play. She's still going to be moving up a fair bit from now, I think. Especially when you can see that gods like Zhonghui, gods like Hercules, are starting to be valued by European metas and North American metas, respectively. Chang'e really does well against both those picks. I can see Chang'e being a staple pick of the entirety of the SPL, and I really hate Base Station and United for that. Thank you. But also thanks Alia, because he plays this god a lot. And there's no secret. He likes playing those mages solo. He likes playing those healers. Wukong and the Mana are going to be moving down as well. Changes to the breastplates, as stated before, have hurt warriors and guardians, More so the Guardians and Mages, but a couple of the ability-based warriors, like some Wukong, like for mana, have seen their stock fall because of the nerf to that item, and because of the nerf to its tier 2 counterpart. You simply just aren't able to get as much trade-off in the early laning phase if you're the Wukong, or much trade-off in the jungle if you're the for mana. You're forced to go into a different build path now, you're forced to go into a different playstyle because of it, or because of one change, or because of 100 gold extra for Breastplate. That a monumental change to the meta. Really small, targeted change to the high-level pro play, and I really enjoyed seeing that change go through, because it meant a lot to us. Meant a lot to the pro team, because of the fact that Guardians were becoming increasingly frustrating to deal with. Mages were starting to creep into the solo lane. You saw some warrior jungles, you saw some warrior mids during the Breastplate reign. And now you're not really going to see them anymore, because that one change takes away from the initial design goal of Season 5, where every class can be played everywhere. But to me, there should be some restrictions on that, and this does feel like that restriction that was needed. A couple more changes to go through, and it's going to be the A category that has those changes. Khepri going to be moving up, recently received a buff. Now is able to safely use his root and pull combo to engage more effectively. Has good lane pressure, which factors into what we said earlier. I think it's better than Sylvanas. Some people would disagree, a lot of people would disagree, but I just straight up think that he is a better laner than Sylvanas. And I honestly think you'll be seeing more Khepri in the next coming weeks and at the Masters LAN, because of the fact that he is good now. I think he's really strong. But just not enough playtime to justify anything above an A+. And finally, you know what's happening. Zhonghui is going to only be moving up slightly. Has only started to see a return to pro play. Has had mixed success in the pro league right now. We'll see where he is before we head out for the next LAN in the summer. Although we still do have to beat Obey Alliance next week to determine whether we do qualify or not. If we do beat them, then we are qualified. If we don't, I believe it's up to other teams and other results to see whether we go to LAN or not. And that is going to do it for the Tierlist update. Thank you guys on YouTube so much for watching. Next patch, from what we've been told, it's going to be a small one, so a small Tierlist update then, probably about like 5-10 minutes at most. I probably will go a bit more in depth with those changes. But then 5.13, as I said before, is going to be that mid-season patch. A lot of changes are going to come in there, a lot of balance changes, and you're going to see a whole big shakeup of the tier list. We may even just redo it from scratch. I'll put out a poll and see what people want. So, until next time, goodbye.